Good evening, sir. I'm Hong Tao. Today is the Simon 2 video presentation. Now I'm using my laptop to record my PowerPoint and use my phone to record my face. The topic I want to talk about today is why did US President Trump call Chinese virus and Kung Fu virus in the front of the media many times? Firstly, I want to talk about the background, but it's not the even background, it's the overall background. The overall background means that the overall social situation in which the event occurred. The first common case in the United States was discovered on the January 21 in Washington, but it's not sure if there were any patients before. Not sure if there were any patients before. The number two is before the March 16, the President of the United States, that the surge of the new coronavirus was minimal. On the March 16, the government began to take action. As of the July 5, the United States has 1.67 million cases of new coronavirus infection and 130,000 deaths. So this is about the overall background of the event. So we can draw a conclusion about that. Is the current epidemic in the US is very serious. Then it is the event background. It has a timeline of the Trump said the Chinese virus and the Kung Fu virus. Firstly, it was March 16 when the Trump read the message in the Twitter. He said the United States will be powerfully supporting those industries like airline and others. They are the particularly affected by the Chinese virus will be together than ever before. This is the first time he said that. Then it was March 18. Trump said that he didn't think that calling the new coronary Chinese virus or Kung Fu virus was racial discrimination. We see the Chinese virus in front of the press conference. After that, the Trump said the Chinese virus on the May 26th. He said that the great reviews on our handling of the COVID-19 sometimes referred to as the China virus. The closest things to now is the July 5. New China virus case up because of massive testing. Diseases are down, low and steady. The fake news media should be report this and also that new job members are setting records. Again mentioned the China virus. But this is currently not the number of times Trump has said all about the Chinese virus, Kung Fu virus, and the China virus. This is only a part of them. Let's to see a video about President of US Trump say the China virus.
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It comes from China. I want to be accurate.
Yeah,
please, John. Please.
The aides behind you. Are you comfortable
I have
with this term?
I have great love for all of the people from our country, but as you know, China tried to say at one point, maybe they stopped now, that it was caused by American soldiers. That can't happen. It's not going to happen. Not as long as I'm president. It comes from China.
Besides, I want to talk about the key aspect. and know the contradictory of the Marxism, so the main aspect is the some key place of the things. This key place can determine the nature of the things. At least some important questions I need to find answer. But before that, the analysis of events should be step by step and logical. So my question should be logical. The first question is, does the virus come from China? This answer determines whether Trump's words were correct or not. Then, if not, what did Trump say China virus or Kung Fu virus to cover up? This question answers the handing most important news story in the investigative journalism. This is the key place where I need to find the problem. When I find the handing truth, I need to discuss the impact of this event. Two important points in investigative journalism are abuse of power and corruption. So I need to ask, have his behavior overdrawn the credibility of the government and abuse power? This is an assumption. Last one is, when she want to hide something, what is the final goal? So I give another assumption is for the general election. The next question is, who are involved and implicated? The President of United States is a position where news even can easily occur, because the influence of the President of United States is huge. His speech, his behavior, his action, his policies are all likely to become the hot news. So many times will be involved in this event. The firstly is China and the Chinese people. To a certain extent, the world has a worse impression of China. And then is American patients and people. The right to life, the right to know the truth, and the right to vote. The third one is the World Health Organization, is WHO. It's difficult to play its due role because we know that Trump has asked the US government to withdraw from the WHO, prohibiting medical investigation and no financial support. Finally, it's the people in other countries. What is the truth? All are the assumptions. Next is the highlight, because I think the evidence to support the assumption is most important for this research. First question is, does the virus come from China? Answer the first question. The first evidence is the new evidence in rise to find French COVID-19 patient zero. It's in the Paris. The French doctor may have made a breakthrough in the race to establish where and when the coronavirus firstly hit Europe, by establishing that the virus may have been in France much earlier than anyone thought. A team of the research in the city of the Clermont in the northeastern France announced that in a race this week that it has identified two X-rays from the November 6 and the November 18. This shows that the European virus source may be inconsistent with the China even earlier. The next is the WHO news. WHO wrote in 2015 that the virus cannot be linked to the specific countries or special regions. So, regardless of any virus, place name cannot be added any place within the name. Besides, WHO has officially named the new virus as the COVID-19 on February 11, 2020. Therefore, it is unofficially to say other name at press of preference or social media, especially for government officials. The next, I think, is the most evidence for this event, is that this is the city leader of the New Jersey said he has been infected with the new coronavirus in the November 2019 and tested that he also have antibodies. This is 2 months earlier than the first patients reported on January. Finally, is the British Nature. Nature is a famous science paper magazine. The Nature published an article saying that it is wrong to associate the new coronavirus with Wuhan and China. And the last evidence is the news is about 171 patients in Florida in the United States. The symptoms in January of this year, which was 2 months earlier than the first patients reported in the state's official, and they have no travel history in Wuhan. This is the most important point for that. They have no travel history of Wuhan. Therefore, this evidence proves this Chinese virus is wrong. The virus did not necessarily come from China. So the first assumption is true. The second assumption is, if not, what did Trump say the China virus or Kung Fu virus to cover up? Now we can see 2 YouTube videos to know how Trump government to fight against the virus.
And the number one priority from our standpoint is the health and safety of the American people. And that's the way I viewed it when I made that decision. Because of all we've done, the risk to the American people remains very low. And we have the greatest experts in the world, really in the world, right here. You ready? I hope people enjoy the sun. And if it has an impact, that's great. I'm just hearing this, not really for the first time. I mean, there's been a rumor that, a very nice rumor that you go outside in the sun or you have heat and it does have an effect on other viruses. But now we get it from one of the great laboratories of the world, I have to say. Covers a lot more territory than just this. This is probably an easy thing, relatively speaking, for you. I would like you to speak to the medical doctors to see if there's any way that you can apply light and heat to cure. If you could. And maybe you can, maybe you can't. Again, I say maybe you can, maybe you can't. I'm not a doctor.
Those 2 videos speak of Trump irresponsible remarks at the press conference. The other is that the federal government and the state government compete for the medical support. We can see that they fail to cooperate in the fighting against the epidemic. We can see this news. 2 million masks ordered by the states were confiscated in the port of New York, leading to creative alternative. So far, we can draw a conclusion about that. Trump government want to cover up the government's mistake in fighting the epidemic and transfer domestic contradiction and adopt China. Before we see that now US have 2.9 million patients have the new virus. We know that when more people die in the epidemic, the people will have the bad emotion. Their family, their sons, their doctor, their friends will have the bad emotion. They will not believe the government, or even that, they may be angry. So the Trump hopes to transfer the traditionally to China and make people to think China has caused many deaths. Okay, now it's the third question. Now has his behavior overdrawn the credibility of the government and abused power? For this part, I quote some the professor and expert quotation on the internet, and I interviewed the Zhang Weiwei professor, and I interviewed the professor Zhang Weiwei. He's a Fudan University professor. The first one is Zhang Weiwei say, I would like to quote from U.S. Vice President Biden, please grow up. Trump is immature and the credibility of the government is disappearing. The next one is infectious diseases specialist at the University of Auckland in the New Zealand. He also is a professor. He said that it really didn't feel like the US has given up. This shows that the government's actions has disappointed some experts. The second one is Zhang Weiwei say, of course, if you are the president, you will have the advantage to build for your own work. For the next 4 years of the presidential re-election, one of the best ways is to transform people's emotions. The last one is Fauci. He's a U.S. infectious disease expert. He's very famous. If the epidemic continues to develop at the current rate, even if the number of the newly confirmed cases reach 100,000 in the single day, it will not be spreading. So from this quotation, at the elected level, Trump's behaviors or the government behaviors is losing the credibility of the government, and Trump are building of the power to build for his work and for increase the rate of the support. What's the final goal? We know that competition will occur in 2020 elections of the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. Therefore, the quality of the epidemic prevention and control will affect the support rate. 2/3 of Americans said it is likely the COVID-19 outbreak will disrupt the president election. So I will give a logical cause and effects relationship. The first is the overall background. The U.S. has much patience in this academic. So Trump said Chinese virus and the Kung Fu virus. She wants to cover up the mistake of the U.S. government against the epidemic, and they can to shake responsibility to China to shift the republic sentiment and domestic conflict, and after this you get a very high rate of the support and win the election. The first one is based on the current research. The virus is not from China. So the next one is the US President Trump has repeatedly claimed the Chinese virus in front of media that is intended to divert contradictions for the election. The last one is Trump is building his power to cover up the failure of the US government to fight the epidemic. That's all about my research and the video presentation. Thank you, sir. That's all.